Good morning, all of you. Today we start the lectures series of urinary system. First, we discuss about the gross anatomy of urinary system. Here you can see the urinary system comprises with two kidneys, two ureters, bladder, and the urethra. In this lecture, I'll discuss about the kidney, ureter, and bladder. First, we'll discuss about the kidney. Kidneys, there are two kidneys in human. It is high up on the posterior abdominal wall and behind the peritoneum. The upper part of the kidney is covered with costal margin and the lower poles can be palpated in normal person. Now you can see the two kidneys are on posterior abdominal wall. Upper part of the kidneys are covered with the costal margin and lower poles are not covered with the costal margin, and these lower poles can be palpated in normal person. Each kidney lies obliquely. The long axis is parallel with the lateral border of the psoas major muscle. As I mentioned earlier, you can see each kidney lies obliquely. The long axis of the kidney is parallel with the lateral border of the psoas major muscle. Normal kidney measures about 2 into 6 into 3 centimeters and weight is around 30 grams. The hilum of the kidneys are situated around the transpyloric plane. That means the right kidney is usually less below than the left kidney because of the liver. Therefore, the right kidney hilum is located just below the transpyloric plane and the left hilum is just above the transpyloric plane. And both hila are situated around 5 centimeters away from the midline. As I told previously, the kidneys are high up on the posterior abdominal wall and upper part of the kidneys are covered with the costal margin. So, because of the liver, the right kidney is little bit lower than the left kidney. So, the right kidney overlies the 12th rib and left kidney overlies the 11th rib. Each kidneys move with the respiration in a vertical range of 2 centimeters during the inspiration and expiration. If it is more than 5 centimeters, if it is move more than 5 centimeters, those kidneys are called as floating kidneys. The kidney is surrounded by tough fibrous tissue, which is called as renal capsule. It is smooth and convex. The renal capsule is itself surrounded by the perirenal fat or perinephric fat, which involves to retain the kidneys in position. The outside of the perinephric fat, there is a renal fascia. Here you can see the kidney is covered with the renal capsule, which is tough fibrous capsule. Outside of the renal capsule, there is a fat containing covering, which is called as perinephric fat. Outside of the perinephric fatty layer, the renal fascia is situated. This renal fascia encloses the kidneys as well as the suprarenal glands. Outside of the renal fascia, another fatty layer which is called as pararenal fatty layer. It is mainly located on the posterior lateral aspect of the kidney. Look at this picture carefully. You can see in above picture the kidney is surrounded with the renal capsule. Outside of that perinephric fatty layer, and the green colored line is represented the renal fascia. This renal fascia encloses the kidney as well as the suprarenal gland. From above, the renal fascia is continued with the diaphragmatic fascia. Let's discuss about the anatomical relations to the kidney, which is important aspect for your exam. There are around 4-5 MCQs as well as at least one structured essay questions asked from this area. So therefore, please remind that and look at this carefully. Let's discuss about the anatomical relationships to the kidney, which is very important aspect for your exams. There are around 4-5 MCQs as well as at least one structured essay questions asked from that. First we discussed about the posterior relations to the kidney. The posteriorly, kidney is related to the diaphragm, quadratus lumborum muscle, psoas muscle, transversus abdominis muscle, 11th and 12th rib, and 3 nerves, subcostal nerves, iliohypogastric and ilioinguinal nerve. In addition to that, the pleura and lung, costodiaphragmatic recess, also the important posterior relations to the kidney. Therefore, the pleura or lung can be damaged during the nephrectomy and leads to pneumothorax. Look at this picture very carefully. You should know how to draw this and important posterior relations to the kidney. In the left kidney, as I told earlier, posteriorly related to 11th as well as 12th rib, because left kidney is bit higher up than the right kidney. Also the diaphragm. Below the diaphragm, below the arcuate ligaments, the subcostal nerve and vessels emerge, and iliohypogastric and ilioinguinal nerve emerge through the quadratus lumborum muscle. In medially, the psoas major is related, and middle part the quadratus lumborum, and laterally transversus abdominis muscle is related to both kidneys. Posterior relations to the both kidneys are same, except 11th and 12th rib both is related to the left kidney, but in the right kidney only 12th rib is related posteriorly. As I told earlier, behind the diaphragm there is a behind the diaphragm the kidney lung, pleura and costodiaphragmatic recess is related, which can be damaged during the nephrectomy. Anterior relations to both kidneys are differed. In the right kidney, anteriorly related to the liver, second part of the duodenum, ascending colon, and the suprarenal gland. In left kidney, it is anteriorly related to stomach, pancreas, spleen, descending colon and suprarenal gland. Look at this picture carefully. You should know how to draw the anterior relations to the kidney. In right kidney, the orange color area is the hepatic area, which is related to the liver. The pinkish area is called as colic area. It is related to the ascending colon. And green colored area is the duodenal area. It is related to the second part of the duodenum. Blue area is the jejunal area. And the yellow colored upper part, the yellow colored area is occupied by the suprarenal gland, so called as suprarenal area. The left kidney, the blue colored area is the jejunal area, which is occupied by the jejunum. Pink color area is the colic area. It occupies the descending colon. The yellow colored area is called as pancreatic area, which occupies the pancreas. The purple color area is splenic area. Green colored area is gastric area, which is related to the stomach, and the upper part is related to suprarenal area. Medial aspect of the kidney has a deep vertical slit. It is called as the hilum, which transmits the renal vein, artery and the pelvis of the ureter. In addition to that, lymphatics and nerves travels through this hilum. In this picture, you can clearly see the medial aspect of the kidney, and from anterior to posterior, the renal vein, renal artery and renal pelvis travel through the hilum. The blood supply to the kidney is given by the renal artery, which is a branch of abdominal aorta. Kidney has segmental blood supply. The renal artery divides into anterior and posterior division near the region of the hilum, and the posterior division supplies the posterior segment of the kidney, and anterior division supplies to the apical, upper, middle and lower segments of the kidney. Here you can see the renal artery is divided into anterior and posterior branch. The posterior division supplies the posterior segment of the kidney, and other part of the kidney is supplied by the anterior division of the renal artery. Veins from the renal segments communicate at the hilum to form the single renal vein, and they leave the hilum in front of the artery, and the left renal vein is bit longer and travels anteriorly to the abdominal aorta below the origin of superior mesenteric artery. Here you can see the left renal vein is bit longer than the right, and it travels anteriorly to the abdominal aorta and below the origin of superior mesenteric artery. Lymphatic drainage to the kidney. The lymph drains to the para-aortic lymph nodes at the level of renal arteries. Kidney has both sympathetic and parasympathetic nerve supply. The sympathetic nerve supply is given by the thoracolumbar outflow from T10 to L1, provide vasomotor supply via the thoracolumbar splenic nerves. The parasympathetic fibers from the vagus nerve as well as fibers from the intermesenteric plexus also innervate the kidneys. Important thing is the patient with renal stone in the kidney may presented with severe colic pain around the loin area, and it associated with nausea and vomiting. The cause of that is the afferent fibers that detect pain originating from the kidney stones in the renal pelvis or the calyces travel via the celiac plexus to the sympathetic trunk by route of the splanchnic nerves. The associated nausea and vomiting may result from afferents traveling along with the vagal route. Let's discuss about the internal structure of the kidney. As I told earlier, the kidneys are enclosed in complex layers of fascia and fat. The renal capsule is a tough fibrous capsule. Outside of that, the perirenal or perinephric fatty layer. Outside of that, the renal fascia, and outermost layer is the pararenal fatty layer, which is mainly located on the posterolateral aspect of the kidney. Internally, kidneys have an unique structure. The renal parenchyma can be divided into main areas, the outer cortex and inner medulla. The cortex extends into the medulla, dividing into triangular shaped areas. These are called as renal pyramids. The apex of the renal pyramid is called as renal papilla. Each renal papilla is associated with a structure known as the minor calyx. The minor calyx collects urine from the pyramids, and several minor calyces merge and form a major calyx. Urine passes through the major calyces into the renal pelvis. The renal pelvis is a flattened and funnel-shaped structure, and from the renal pelvis, urine drains into the ureter, which transports it to the bladder for storage. The medial aspect of each kidney is marked by a deep vertical slit, which is known as renal hilum. Here you can see the cortex is the outermost part of the kidney, and medulla is the innermost part of kidney. The functional and structural unit of the kidney is known as the nephron. There are two types of nephrons in the kidney: cortical nephron and the juxtamedullary nephron. These nephrons have the part is called as glomerulus. These are situated within the cortex. And the loop collecting tubules and collecting ducts mainly are situated in the renal medullary part. And these collecting tubules and collecting ducts are opened into the renal papilla and then into the minor calyx. The functional and structural unit of the kidney is the nephron. There are about 1 million of nephrons in each kidney. A nephron is the basic structural and functional unit of the kidney. They are the microscopic structure composed of a renal corpuscle and a renal tubule. The nephron of the mammalian nephron is a long tube-like structure. Its length varying from 35 to 55 millimeters long, and at one end the tube is closed, folded and expanded into a double-walled structure which is cup-like structure and called as Bowman capsule or renal corpuscle. This encloses a cluster of microscopic blood vessels which is called as the glomerulus. This capsule and the glomerulus together constitute the renal corpuscle. So, renal corpuscle is comprised with the glomerulus as well as the renal capsule, Bowman capsule. When we discuss about the structure of the nephron, it comprises two major portions, the tubular part as well as the renal corpuscle. The renal tubule is a long and convoluted structure that emerges from the glomerulus and can be divided into three parts, which is based on its function. The first part of the tube is called as proximal convoluted tubule, and these are situated mainly in the renal cortex. The second part of the tubule is called as loop of Henle. This loop of Henle has a thick ascending limb and thin descending limb. This loop of Henle is situated in the renal medulla. The third part of the renal tubule is called as the distal convoluted tubule, and it is also situated in the renal cortex area. The capillaries of the glomerulus are enclosed by a cup-like structure which is called as Bowman capsule, and this structure extends to form highly coiled tubule called proximal convoluted tubule. The proximal convoluted tubule continue to form the loop of Henle, which ascends to distal convoluted tubule and opens into the collecting duct. When we discuss about the renal corpuscle, which consists of a glomerulus surrounded by a Bowman capsule. The glomerulus arises from an afferent arteriole and empties into an afferent arteriole. The smaller diameter of efferent arteriole helps to maintain the higher pressure within the glomerulus. The Bowman capsule is divided into three layers: the outer parietal layer, middle basement membrane, and inner visceral layer. The outer parietal layer of the renal corpuscle, Bowman capsule, is made up of very thin epithelial cells, and middle basement membrane is a selective permeable area. An inner visceral layer of the Bowman capsule is consisted with large nucleated cells. It has cells these have finger-like projections. Those cells are called as podocytes. As I told earlier, there are two types of nephron, the cortical nephron and the juxtamedullary nephron. The cortical nephrons are the nephrons present within the cortical area. These are short and comprise about 80% of the total nephrons. The juxtamedullary nephrons, these have long loops of Henle and extend into the medullary area. These are around 20% of total nephrons. Let's discuss about the ureters. The ureters are bilateral, thin tubular structures that connect the kidneys to the urinary bladder, transporting the urine from the pelvis into the bladder. The muscular layers of the ureters are responsible for the peristaltic activity that the ureter uses to move the urine from the kidneys to the bladder. This is the very important part of the lecture. You should know what are the relations throughout the course of ureter. For educational purpose, we divide the ureter into three parts: abdominal part, pelvic part, as well as intravesical part. The abdominal part of ureter has common relations to both ureters. When the ureter passes down on the psoas major muscle and below the coverings of the peritoneum, then it crosses in front of the genitofemoral nerve and crosses anteriorly by the gonadal vessels. The right ureter upper part is behind the third part of the duodenum. Anteriorly, lower part is crossed by the right colic, ileocolic vessels and root of the mesentery. Left ureter is situated lateral to the inferior mesenteric vessels and crossed anteriorly by the left colic vessels and apex of the sigmoid mesocolon at the pelvic brim. Ureter leaves the psoas major muscle at the bifurcation of the common iliac artery over the sacroiliac joint and cross the pelvic brim and enter into the pelvis. As I told earlier, the right ureter upper part is behind the third part of the duodenum. Anteriorly, lower part is crossed by right colic, ileocolic vessels and the root of mesentery. The left ureter lateral to the inferior mesenteric vessels, crossed anteriorly by left colic vessels, apex of the sigmoid mesocolon at pelvic brim. The pelvic part of the ureters travel down the lateral pelvic wall. At the level of ischial spine, the ureter turns anteromedially and reach the bladder, pierce the lateral aspect of the bladder in an oblique manner. Here you can see the pelvic part of the ureter. It travels down the lateral pelvic wall and at the level of ischial spine, ureter turns anteromedially and reach the bladder, then enters the bladder at the lateral aspect in an oblique manner. In females, as ureter crosses the pelvic brim, they are very closer to the ovaries and around 2 centimeters above the ischial spine, the ureters run below the uterine arteries. In male, instead of uterine arteries, the vas deferens cross the ureter. ureters anteriorly. Here you can see the vas deferens cross the ureters anteriorly. In females, around 2 centimeters above to the ischial spine, the ureters run below the uterine arteries. Usually it is called the water under the bridge. The intravesical part of ureter passes obliquely through the wall of the bladder for around 0.75 inches. This is the intravesical part of the ureter. It passes obliquely through the wall of bladder and enters into the bladder at trigone area and near the opening of the ureter. The ureters have ureteric fold and enters into the bladder through the ureteric orifice. There are three main constrictions, anatomical constrictions of the ureter, which is important clinically because urinary stones can be lodged in that areas. First is at the junction of the pelvis of ureter with the abdominal part. Next one is at the pelvic brim, and other constriction is at the ureteric orifice. Here you can see the three main constrictions, anatomical constriction of the ureter. First one is at the pelvic-ureteric junction. Next one is at the pelvic brim. At the pelvic brim as the ureter enters the pelvis and crosses over the common iliac artery bifurcation. The last constriction is at the vesico-ureteric junction as the ureter obliquely enters the bladder wall. Here also you can see the three main constrictions of ureter near the ureteric orifice, pelvic brim and pelvic-ureteric junction. The upper end of the ureter is supplied by the ureteric branch of renal artery. The lower end of the ureter is supplied by branches from the superior and inferior vesicle and uterine arteries. The middle part of the ureter is supplied by the branches from the abdominal aorta, gonadal and common iliac, internal iliac arteries. Here you can see the upper end of the ureter is supplied by ureteric branches of renal artery, and middle part is supplied by branches from the abdominal aorta, gonadal, common iliac, internal iliac arteries. The lower end is supplied by the branches from superior and inferior vesicle as well as uterine arteries. Lymphatic drainage to the ureter is given by for the abdominal part of ureter drains into para-aortic nodes, and pelvic part drains to common iliac and internal iliac nodes. Ureters also have sympathetic and parasympathetic nerve supply. The sympathetic fibers of T10 to L1 segments of the cord reach the ureter via celiac and hypogastric plexus. The parasympathetic fibers from the pelvic splanchnic nerves. Let's discuss about the bladder. The empty bladder is situated entirely within the pelvic cavity. The normal capacity of the bladder is around 300 milliliters. Bladder is needed to temporary storage of urine and assists in the expulsion of urine. The apex of the bladder is located superiorly, which pointing towards the pubic symphysis. It is connected to the umbilicus by the median umbilical ligament, which is a remnant of urachus. The base or posterior surface of the bladder is located posteriorly, which is triangular shaped surface and with the tip of the triangle pointing backwards. The only uppermost part of the base is covered by the peritoneum. The inferolateral surfaces of the bladder lying against the front part of the pelvic diaphragm and obturate internus. The neck of bladder is formed by the convergence of the fundus and the two inferolateral surfaces, which is continuous with the urethra. In male, it lies against the upper surface of the prostate, and in female, the neck is above the urethra in the connective tissue and anterior vaginal wall. The superior surface of the bladder is covered by the peritoneum. Here you can see the bladder. The superior surface of the bladder is covered by the peritoneum, and the base or posterior surface of the bladder, only uppermost part, is covered by the peritoneum. Near the neck of the bladder, in males, it lies against the upper surface of the prostate. In females, the neck is above the urethra in the connective tissue of anterior vaginal wall. When we discuss about the internal appearance of the bladder, the musculature of the bladder plays an important role in the storage and emptying of urine. In order to contract during the micturition, the bladder wall contains a specialized smooth muscle. It is known as detrusor muscle. Its fibers are oriented in multiple directions, therefore retaining structural integrity when stretched. It receives innervation from both sympathetic as well as parasympathetic nerve systems. The trigone of the bladder is triangular area at the base of the bladder, and it is situated in between two urethral orifices and internal urethral orifice. When the bladder is empty, the three openings are around 2.5 centimeters apart, and when the bladder is distended, these three openings are around 5 centimeters apart. And the trigone is the least mobile part of the bladder. Here you can see the triangular area at the base of bladder, which is known as trigone of bladder, which is located in between two urethral orifices and internal urethral orifice. The blood supply to the bladder is given by superior and inferior vesical arteries. Venous drainage is by vesicoprostatic plexus, which is situated in the groove between bladder and prostate, then drains into internal iliac veins. Lymphatic drainage to the bladder is given by a drain mainly into external iliac nodes and some drains to internal iliac nodes. As I told earlier, bladder also has parasympathetic and sympathetic nerve supply. Parasympathetic nerve supply is given by pelvic splanchnic nerves, and sympathetic nerve supply is given by L1 and L2 segments of the cords via superior and inferior hypogastric plexus. In this picture you can see the parasympathetic fibers which is given by the pelvic splanchnic nerves, and the sympathetic fibers from L1, L2 segments of the cords via superior and inferior hypogastric and vesical plexuses. Thank you so much for listening. Let's discuss about the histology and embryology of the urinary system in next week. Thank you.